Cool. All right. So I'm going to lie down on your back and have some kind of comfortable ish mat underneath you. If not, you can certainly do this on carpet, but it does sometimes help to have something a little soft that you're laying down on. So you can have your legs, knees bent or legs long, whatever feels best to you. And to start, I want you to just take a little scan of the body. Palms can be down or up, whatever feels best to you. And I want you to just kind of start at the crown of your head and just check in. And then start to sort of slide your focus down to the space between your eyebrows. Maybe the jaw is a little tight. See if you can relax any tension as you're doing this sort of scan in the body. And then start to scan down maybe the neck. Maybe you realize that your shoulders are way up to your ears. Try to relax those down. And then going down the arms, maybe your hands are kind of like unknowingly in fists. Just kind of relax those. Again, palms up or down. And then scanning into the chest. See if your shoulders could relax a little bit more, not only away from your ears, but down towards the floor as well. And then your ribs. Bring awareness to those, especially as you inhale. I want you to notice what happens to the ribs as you inhale. And exhale. And then your waistline, as you inhale, you're kind of imagining that space or feeling that space expand. And then exhale. Maybe that space is doing a gentle pull in, almost like you're trying to create like a hourglass shape in the waistline. And then scanning down towards the hips, noticing if you're holding tension in your low back. And just sort of notice where your low back is in space, right? Is it flat to the mat or is it sort of arched away? Can you find kind of a happy medium? And then notice the glutes, the tush. Are you squeezing those muscles unknowingly? Can you relax that? And then the knees or the thighs, just kind of noticing any tension that you might be holding there, whether your knees are bent or long. And then the calves, the shins, ankles, tops of the feet, the toes. Can you imagine spreading your toes out as if you could spread your toes just like you spread your fingers? And then noticing the bottoms of the feet, the soles of the feet, the heels. If your knees are bent and your feet are flat on the floor, just noticing where those feet are connecting to the floor. And if they're not, if your legs are long, just kind of noticing what do the bottoms of your feet feel like? Have you done a lot of walking today, or maybe not? Maybe they just sort of feel like normal. That's okay too. And you're just noticing. So now, with this sort of full body awareness, we're all going to bend the knees if they're not already. And you're going to bring your heels to about hip width distance. So the hips, when I say hip width distance, a lot of the time I see people like bring their feet super, super wide. Your hips are actually a lot more narrow than you think. So you can even kind of, if you want, sort of grab onto the butt a little bit and find those bony sits bones. So if you were like sitting on a, those like steel risers or seats at like a sporting event. And if you're sitting there for a really long time, you feel those bony butt bones. Those are your sits bones. And I want your heels to be right in line with those sits bones. And that's about hip width distance apart, right? So then I want you to bring your hands into a little diamond shape, and your thumbs are going to go on your belly button, and your fingertips are going to fall into your or onto your pubic bone. Right? So you're just resting that sort of diamond shape of your hands right on top of your pelvis. Now I want you to imagine that your hands are resting on like a clock face. And so your belly button is 12 o'clock and your pubic bone is 6 o'clock. Now I want you to tilt and tuck your pelvis from 12 to 6 without lifting your hips into a bridge, right? So we're not letting the hips lift up off the mat. You're keeping your pelvis heavy to the floor, but you're just tilting and tucking. So you're finding heaviness towards your thumbs, your belly button pulls back towards your spine, and then you're finding heaviness towards your fingertips. Your low back slightly lifts off the mat. So if I were to sort of move my t-shirt, I can fit my hand underneath my low back quite a bit because I'm arching my back, but my butt bones or my tailbone and my tush are pretty heavy to the floor. And then when I tilt and I tuck my pelvis, my low back flattens to the mat and there's no more space for me to put my hand. Now, keep going at your own pace here. I want you to notice that I'm not using my butt and squeezing my tush to tuck my hips. I'm just using the strength of my core. So I'm imagining these sort of, what is the word? Suspenders in the front of my body. These suspenders are connected to my ribs and my hip bones. And those suspenders are shortening as I tuck my tail. I'm relaxing my butt. And then the suspenders are lengthening as I tilt my hips and I lift my low back a little off the mat. Good. It takes a long time to take the glutes and the butt out of this. So if you're like, I don't know how to do that without squeezing my tush, it's okay. Come back to this. It'll take some time. And then when you're ready, you're going to find a happy medium between those 2 points. So you're not tucking to 12, but you're not arching your back at 6 o'clock. You're just right in the middle. Okay. And then from here, your hip bones are 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And I want you to just sink your right side hip down. Your left knee might lift up towards the ceiling a little bit. And then you're going to sink your left side hip down. Your right knee might lift a little bit, right? So the knees can sort of piston. One can go higher than the other, but I'm not letting my knees drift side to side with me, right? So I'm thinking more like I'm showing just the front of my pants to someone on the left side of my room, and then I'm showing just the front of my pants to someone on the right side of my room. It's a pretty small move, and I'm asking you to like move the pelvis around your thighs, which is a little harder to do in this position. So you're just moving your pelvis side to side, like you're doing a twist. A lot of the time this turns into a hike of the hips. So I want you to just notice that I'm keeping this distance between my hip and rib the same. I'm just sinking one side down and sinking the other side down. So the space between hip and rib stays the same. Good. Then you're going to find another happy medium right between all 4 of those points. So if you were to rest like a bowl of cereal on the front of your pelvis, it's not spilling onto your belly and it's not spilling in between your legs. It's just sort of resting right in the middle. Now, from here, I want you to notice if your ribs are lifted up off the floor. Can you find heaviness there without tucking your tail and flattening your low back down? Right? So when you find that the ribs heavy to the mat and the tailbone heavy to the floor without squeezing the butt and lifting the ribs, that's going to be your neutral pelvis. So it's this natural curve of your spine. We want to try to work from there unless there's any pain in the low back. If there's any pain in the low back, you go ahead and tuck your tail to that 12 o'clock tuck so your low back is flat to the mat. So I've started to call these, I've like named these moves. So when we tuck the tail, that's going to be called Michael Jackson, right? So when Michael Jackson does those like crazy, pelvic tucks in his really smooth dance moves, that's where we're going to kind of find that inspiration, right? So tucking the tail is Michael Jackson, and then sending the tailbone down and arching your back, sticking your tail feathers down into the floor. We're going to call that Kim Kardashian, okay? Because we're sticking our butt out like Kim Kardashian. So if you feel this in your low back, so the ideal is between Michael Jackson and Kim Kardashian, right? So just right in the middle. But if that hurts your low back, I want you to go all the way into that Michael Jackson tuck, right? Ribs heavy, low back heavy. You can feel all vertebrae of your spine pressing into the floor, okay? Or you can find that neutral, happy medium, all right? From here, we're gonna lift one leg into tabletop, and then you're just gonna start to tap that right toe down and then lift up. And I said one leg and then I said right. So if you chose the left, that's fine too. Just tapping the toe and lifting. Now, noticing that my spine isn't moving here. I'm not letting my back arch and tuck as I move my leg. I'm keeping everything really still and stable, using my core. Good. Let's switch to the other side. Other leg lifts and taps. Lift and tap. Good. You want to think about those 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock hip bones magnetizing towards one another so that you're trying to meet those two hip bones into the center, somewhere between pubic bone and belly button. It's almost like you're putting on a really tight pair of pants and you're trying to like narrow those hips together. Last two. Breathe here. One. Good. Now, if that was challenging enough, you stay there and you keep doing that. You can just alternate right and left. If you'd like a little extra challenge, you're going to bring both legs up to tabletop. Keep your core connected. Flatten your low back down. If you feel your low back lift off the mat, try to keep it flat to the mat. From here, we're going to tap the right toes down and lift them back up. Tap the left toes, lift them back up. Good. Now, again, the tendency, especially as the leg lowers, is to arch the back. So I want you to really think about, can you keep your back nice and flat on the mat? Good, without letting everything sort of lift, right? So you want to exhale at the hardest part of this move for you. For me, that's kind of all of it when I lower and then lift. So I like to take a really long exhale. Now, the closer your knees are to your chest, the less intense. So if you need a little bit of less intensity today, take your knees in. However, I want you to notice, are you just bending at the knee and tapping your foot down? Or are you moving this thigh away from your chest? The farther your thighs are away from your chest, the more your core is going to have to work. So I really want you to think, some people call these femur arcs. So I want you to think about your femur, your thigh bone, arching away from your tush. That's where you're going to get the core control, or the core work. Last two. Breathe. And one. Good. Whew. Take a break. You can bend the knees to the chest. You can place your feet on the floor and do a little windshield wiper, whatever you need to do. Give yourself a moment. Then from here, we're going to bring those feet back to hip width distance apart. And the closer your heels are to your butt, the less likely your hamstrings are to cramp when we go into the bridge. So if you know that your hamstrings have a tendency to cramp, go ahead and pull those knees as close to your butt as you want. They don't have to be like right underneath your tush, right? They can be just right underneath the knees. Arms are going to be long by the sides, shoulders down. And then you're going to take that 12 o'clock tuck, so that Michael Jackson tuck of your tail, Low back flattens to the mat. And then you're going to push through your heels, lift your hips up, keep that tuck of your pelvis the whole time. Take an inhale at the top and then lower all the way back down. Good. Now, we're going to do this a couple more times. I'm just going to point out some things that I see a lot. I see a lot of arching the back, not just like today, but just in general with clients. And then all of my weight is in my shoulders and my neck, and it's not very comfortable. I'm not getting really any work anywhere. It actually just hurts my back. So I want you to think about your rib cage getting heavy to the floor, and your pubic bone is higher than your ribs. Now, lowering down from there. The other thing that I see a lot is when you lift, even if your ribs are lower than your pubic bone, which is great, you still sometimes feel the need to push into your heels. And then I'm feeling it in the front of my thighs. With a bridge, we want to feel it in the back of the thighs and the butt. So I want you to think about sending your hips forward towards the back of your calves, right? So the difference is here versus here. Here versus here. So here I'm pushing into my heels and trying to create space between my heels and my seat. I want you to create less space between the heels and the seat, right? So pull your heels towards your butt, send your knees over the tops of your feet, and then lower down. Hopefully that feels a lot different. Good. And then if you need a little bit of head support here, that's fine. But I don't want your head to be lifted, because when we try to lift the hips and the head at the same time, it just doesn't really work. And it can also put some unnecessary tension on the head. If you need the head support for any reason, vertigo or whatever it may be, that's fine. Just don't lift your hips quite as high or like higher than your ribs, right? You can just sort of lift them just a little bit off the mat. You're still going to get the work. I just don't want you to lift your hips higher than your ribs if your head is lifted. Okay, couple more here. Thinking, without physically moving your feet, can your heels magnetize towards your butt? Good. Last two. Squeeze the tush. Ribs are heavy, abs are pulled in. And you're keeping that tuck of your pelvis until you get to the very bottom, and you can let your tailbone find heaviness to the floor. We're going to lift and hold here. So shins are trying to reach over the tops of the toes. Glutes are squeezed. Michael Jackson tuck of the tail. And your abs are turned on. From here, you're just going to let your right hip dip a little bit to the floor and then bring it right back up. Let your left hip dip a little bit to the floor, bring it right back up. Switching sides, right and left. When you exhale, think about using the core on that exhale. And you're just sort of disengaging the muscle of the tush and then re-engaging. Last one each side, right? And then left, center, and lower all the way back down. Ooh, I don't know about you, but I feel that in the tush and the back of the legs. Good. Bend the knees into the chest. Take a little stretch. If you need to stretch your leg or both legs up to the ceiling, feel free to do so. Take what you need. Good. All right. So now we are going to do a little core work. And as we do this, I just want to kind of have you notice a couple of things that we're going to talk about later. So hands are going to go behind your head, interlace your hands, and then let your thumbs kind of track down the side of your neck in the back. Your elbows aren't all the way wide to the floor, but they aren't like tucking into your ears either. So they're kind of in a happy medium. So I can see my elbows in my peripheral vision. And then as you take a big, deep breath, inhale, feel the back ribs expand with some air. And then as you exhale, feel those back ribs fall heavier to the mat as you lift your head, neck, and chest up into a crunch. And then inhale, lower back down. Exhale, lift up. Good. Now the tendency here is to tuck the tail and squeeze the butt. I want you to try to keep the space where your butt meets your hamstring really heavy to the mat as you lift and lower your chest. So this is just upper core mainly. There's a little bit of lower core that turns on to keep your pelvis still, but I don't want you to tuck your tail and bring this big like rounding position, right? I want you to keep your hips nice and neutral and just lift and lower the head, neck, and chest. Exhale. Now, the other thing is, can you keep your head really heavy in your hands? So your head almost is pushing a little bit into the palms of your hands, just so that we're not pulling on the neck, right? I want you to lift the shoulder blades up off the mat rather than just the head, right? 2 more. Good. Last one. And then lower back down. Good. For the next set, I want you to place your left hand on your belly, kind of at the low belly, and then right hand is going to go behind the head. I want you to inhale, feel your belly expand into your hand. And then as you exhale, notice, do you feel your hand still maintaining that expand or that expansion? Or do you feel the belly kind of activate and pull back away from your hand? Hopefully it's the latter, but a lot of the time I see like, I'll try and do this. It's not going to be very flattering, but whatever. So a lot of the time I see like a big inhale into the belly, and then all of that intra-abdominal pressure just sort of stays in the belly. I want you to think, exhale, pull the belly in and up, and feel the core and the deep core activating, right? So it doesn't really matter how much like fat that you have on the belly. That's not really pertinent. It's really more about the deep core muscles. And so if you can feel some like coning and doming in your abs or in your belly when you lift, I want you to notice that and see if you can feel the 2 sides of your body kind of corset wrapping together to pull that belly in and up. Good. We'll talk more about that in a second, but I just want you to notice, is your belly staying expanded or can you pull it back in? Okay, good. Take a moment. Inner windshield wiper your knees side to side. Good. Okay, so while we're on that topic, let's go ahead and roll over to one side. Press yourself up to a seat. And you can sit either on a chair, you can sit cross-legged, you can sit on a yoga block, whatever you need to do. It's going to mainly focus on like hips up or pelvis up for now. So the legs don't have to be in any kind of position, just whatever's comfortable. And so I'm going to take this top layer off so that you can see a little bit better. All right, so I've talked about deep core stuff with a lot of you, but again, if somebody's watching this in the future, we want to think about the deep core in a bunch of different layers. So you've got your like 6-pack muscles right in the front. And then you've got your, gosh, why can't I think of words? Obliques on the sides. So you've got your like internal obliques and some external obliques. And then you've got your deep transverse abdominals. So those are the muscles that are basically helping you stand up, and they connect to your spine. So they're very, very deep. We want to try to activate those just as much as we want to try to activate the six-pack muscles, maybe even more. So the way that I like to sort of talk about it is imagining that your whole situation here from, and you can stay seated, I'm just going to do this so you can see, but from like the base of the pelvis to up here is like your diaphragm is like a canister, right? So this is the top of the canister, your pelvic floor is the bottom of the canister. So you want to think about at the base of your pelvis, you've got your tailbone and your tailbone, sits bones, and pubic bone. All four of those are going to make a diamond. So that's what's happening like right underneath you, right? Your front of the diamond is your pubic bone, back of the diamond is your tailbone, and the two sides are your sits bones. So as you inhale, I want you to imagine that that space opens up and widens. And then as you exhale, that space narrows, that diamond narrows, and you're lifting up, right? So everyone has a pelvic floor, men, women. If you have a pelvis, you've got a pelvic floor. So want you to think about those 4 points narrowing and lifting up. Sometimes you'll hear it as if you are picking up a tissue. For men, I'm the way I describe it is like when you walk into a cold pool, that sort of like situation that happens. That's what we're thinking of, right? And even for women, right? It's not super comfortable walking to a cold pool. So you want to think about that lift. It's also the same as stopping the flow of urine. Now, I don't recommend like practicing this on the toilet necessarily. It's not great to just like stop the flow of urine all the time. If you want to practice it once or twice, sure, but that's the same sensation. So as you inhale, you're releasing the flow of urine or the feeling and releasing like you're passing gas. And then as you exhale, you're narrowing and stopping the flow of urine, stopping yourself from passing gas. So that is level 1. Level 2 is going to be your hip bones. So when we were doing the clocking, right, we had belly button 12, pubic bone 6, and we did like, front to back, and then we did side to side. So these two hip bones are your 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. I want you to think about exhaling, narrowing those together, and then inhale, widen. Exhale, narrow. Inhale, widen. So again, I don't love this visual, but it's as if you're putting on like a size too small pair of pants and you're trying to like narrow the hip bones so that you can get them on and zipped. That's that sensation that we're kind of looking for. It's not this is me just kind of like letting my belly poof out. And then I'm gonna like suck in, right? And then we have this like concave, right? I'm not actually engaging my abs there. So I want you to think as you exhale, it's like a lift up, right? It's not a suck in, it's a lift up. So that takes a minute, but that's where we're headed. The third layer is your waistline. So I want you to imagine when you inhale, your waistline is expanding, right? So not even just the right and left sides, but the front and back as well. So as you inhale, you've got all 4 corners of your waist expanding. And then as you exhale, you're narrowing all 4 corners of the waist, front, back, side to side, as if you're trying to like create that hourglass shape. You also might hear about it as like a corset wrapping around. The 4th little level is your rib cage. So you can even put your hands on your ribs here and feel as you inhale, your fingertips get wider away from one another. And then as you exhale, your fingertips get a little bit closer. They may not touch. It depends on how wide your rib cage is. It doesn't matter. Inhale, expand. Exhale. Good. So you're feeling that wrapping sensation. So as if I'm wrapping your torso in saran wrap and you're trying to pull your like the skin of your belly away from that saran wrap all the way around. So the core is not just the six-pack abs. The core is the whole core canister all the way around. So what we were doing is 360 breathing. I'll send y'all a link also to a graphic that I have. But we want to try to do all four of those levels together when we breathe. So inhale, expand that diamond of the pelvic floor as if you're releasing the flow of urine. Expand the hip bones, expand the waistline, expand the ribs. And then exhale, wrapping into the center. Exhale, exhale, exhale. And then inhale and expand. Exhale. Good. And you'll notice that I'm being like kind of dramatic with my exhale. When you exhale, I want you to think about it as if you're trying to fog up a mirror. So inhale, expand, and then exhale. And hopefully you can feel, even if you put your hands like right on the outside of those six-pack ab muscles, just between your side body and the six-pack ab muscles, when you exhale, hopefully you feel those muscles kind of poke out back into your fingertips. I know that was a lot. I'm glad I'm recording this so that you can go back and listen to it again. But we're going to try that on all fours. So if this is not the most comfortable position for you, that's okay. You can certainly stay seated and keep doing the breath, or you can do that on your back as well. If you'd like a little extra padding, you can roll your mat up and place your knees on that padding if you'd like. So knees under hips, hands are underneath your shoulders, and you can also always go onto your fists if you need to. What I want you to be aware of, I don't want you to lock out your elbows, right? So I'm hypermobile, so my elbows bend past straight. If yours look like this, I want you to just be aware and try to think about shining the insides of your elbows towards one another, right? So that just created a little bit more bend. So from here to here, right? Too much straighten, right about halfway. So, all right. Now we're going to take a big inhale. Expand your belly, expand your ribs. Notice how my belly's hanging down to the floor, but I'm not arching my back, right? I'm just letting my belly expand. And then exhale. I'm pulling my belly in using my abs, right? I'm not just like sucking in, right? You can certainly do that, but to get the most out of the transverse, those deep abs, you're going to inhale, let your litter of kittens, right? You're a pregnant cat. Let your litter of kittens hang, and then exhale. You lift your belly away from your t-shirt, away from your pants. All right. From here, we're going to reach the left leg long behind you. Inhale, expand. Exhale, pull the belly in first, and then lift that back leg. Tap it down. Inhale, exhale. Good. And so you'll notice that my back is not moving, right? So if I put my phone in the small of my back or my low back, I have my leg lengthened behind me. Inhale, exhale. My phone isn't arching into my back and my phone isn't dropping down my leg, right? So I'm keeping that nice neutral pelvis that we found on our back. And as I exhale, I'm thinking pull the abs in and squeeze the glute. I'm not moving my spine at all. Good, last two. And one. Good. Bend the knee down. You can take a break if you want to go to child's pose. I don't know how my phone is staying where it is, but that's cool. And then you'll come back to that kneeling position. Inhale, let your belly hang without arching. Let your belly hang. And then exhale, pull the belly in, lengthen your right leg out or the other leg, whichever one you haven't done already. Inhale, expand. Exhale, lift and squeeze the tush. Inhale, tap down. Exhale, lift. Good. And so I'm using my abs a lot. This is, yes, a booty exercise, but it's also a core exercise. Exhale. Fogging up a mirror every time you exhale. Last two. Good. Push that floor away. Try not to let your head drop or your chest drop. Really think about nice long spine, active arms. Good. One more time. Yeah. Bend in, take a break. You can sit back, hips to heels if you'd like. Take a little stretch. Good. All right. Now, we're going to lie down on one side. So I'm going to say you lie down on your left side so that you can mirror my body. If you need a little, if this position for your neck or head does not feel good, or shoulders, you can always have a yoga block, a throw pillow, a rolled up towel, whatever you need underneath your head here so that your shoulders are kind of stacked rather than in this kind of position. If this feels okay on your shoulders, great. You can stay with your head in your hand. So I want you to set this up nice and strong. So my hips and my ribs should be in line with one another. My ribs were a little bit forward of my hips, and that's usually what happens, right? We tend to be in this kind of rounded forward position. So I want you to keep your chest slightly back so that it's in line with your hips. You're going to lengthen out your top leg. So your right leg is super long. Left knee is going to stay bent. I want you to rotate your top hip forward so that you keep this hip stacked on top of the bottom one. You're going to lengthen your leg. Imagine I'm pulling that leg out of its socket and then lifting it up. Inhale, tap it down. Exhale, lift it up. And so the exhale is not just like there for show, right? You want to really think about pulling the abs in on the exhale. That's going to help keep your hips stable. And when your hips are stable and you're doing this exercise, you're going to get more into the correct muscle. Good. Yeah. Now, the tendency is to turn out and roll the hip back. I want you to rotate your hip forward and turn your toes. So if you were wearing shoes, the laces of your shoes are slightly facing the floor. Exhale. Inhale. Good. Are you keeping that length of your top leg? You can check in by saying, okay, do I have a little bit of a mouse hole underneath my side waistline? Right? So if you were to lift your leg super high, I lost my mouse hole here. So if I think about lengthening the leg and then lifting, I've still got my little space. Last three. Relax the shoulders, 2. Last one, exhale, lift and hold. You're going to bend that knee into your chest. Maybe you tap your elbow, and then you're going to extend it to the back diagonal, like you're pushing something heavy away. Bend the knee in, abs. Press the leg back, booty squeeze. Good. Bend in. Press back. Good. As you bend in, that's another opportunity for you to lose the lift of your side waistline. So I want you to think, as you bend in, think send this hip away from your knee and then squeeze the tush as you lengthen it back. Good. 3 more. Ooh. 2. Last one, you're gonna press back and hold, and you're gonna lower that leg, lift the leg on that back diagonal, right? So notice how I'm not like arching my back and leaning forward with my chest. I'm keeping everything really stacked. I'm keeping my spine really long, and I'm squeezing the heck out of the side glute. So it's that kind of upper outer corner of your jeans pants pocket. Ooh, 3. Last 2. Oh my gosh, last one. Beautiful. Oh, give yourself a little tap on the side of your hip if you need that. You can also let your legs sort of drape in front for a little extra stretch. Good. That glute med, that side outer glute, is kind of a mystery for a lot of folks. And it's really hard to just activate on command. So if you didn't really feel that in the side butt, that's okay. Again, come back to this, and hopefully the more you do it, the more it'll click. But the trick is to keep that top hip rotated forward. We're going to switch to the other side. So you're going to lie down on your right side this time. Good. Lengthen the top leg nice and long, and think about pulling that leg out of its socket, and notice that you have a little bit of space underneath your right side waistline for a little tiny mouse to just travel through. Keep that space lifted under the right side waistline. Rotate your top hip forward, and then lift that leg. Lower it back down. Keep these hips stacked. Keep that lift of your side waistline. Abs are helping you here. So think lift and inhale, lower, expand, exhale, abs, inhale, expand. Good. So roll that top hip forward. And then if you were wearing shoes, the laces are slightly facing the floor. Lengthen that leg before you lift it. And keep the spine nice and long. Good. Ooh. If you feel any arch in your back, I want you to find a slight, tiny little Michael Jackson tuck of your tail. So pubic bone to belly button. Just a little one. It doesn't have to be very big. 5, 4. Good. 3, 2. Last one, you're going to lift and hold. You're going to bend that top knee in. Try not to lose the mouse hole. Lift that side body, pull it in, and then extend it back out. Good. And by extend it back out, I mean to the back diagonal. Good. Exhale, press. Inhale in. Exhale, squeeze the tush. Good. Sorry, y'all, my Zoom just did something weird. Okay. All right. Ooh. Last. Good. And then you're going to hold it back on the back diagonal, and you're going to lower and lift. Lower and lift. Good. Exhale. Inhale, tap. Good. Keeping that top hip rotated forward. Ribs are connecting in towards one another. For 3, 2, 1. Good. Give yourself a break. Very nice. Okay. Lovely. You're going to press yourself. Actually, I lied. Let's roll over onto your belly. And we'll do a little extension work. So, all right. You're going to bring your elbows into a 90-degree bend. So kind of a goalpost or cactus position with your arms. And to set this up correctly, I want you to think, tuck your tail So your pubic bone presses down into the mat. You're lengthening your low back. So your tailbone lengthens towards your heels. You're lifting your belly button away from the floor. So you've got like a little tiny flame underneath your belly button, and you're trying to lift the belly button away from the mat. Good. So tops of the feet are going to stay glued to the mat for now. You're going to inhale, lengthen the crown of your head away from your shoulders, and lift the head, neck, and chest up, finding that squeeze in your upper back, and then inhale, lower back down. And I think I've said this before, but full disclosure, my training says to inhale as you lift and exhale as you lower. I think that feels a little strange. And I feel like it's hard for me to focus on where I need to feel this. But if that feels better to you, inhale as you lift, right? As long as you're breathing, I'm okay with whatever breath pattern you choose for this one. Good. Keeping that belly button lifted away from the floor, pubic bone pushing down to the mat. Good. Last two. And one. You're going to lift and hold. Belly button's lifting away from the floor. If you feel like if you were to lift your arms, your head would just fall, I want you to take your chest a little bit lower and then lift your arms into the air and then tap the arms back down. Exhale, lift and tap. Good. Every time you lift your arms, remind yourself to lift that belly button away from the floor. Woo. 3. Good. 2. Last one, you're going to lift and hold. You're going to pull those elbows down to your side seams and then reach the arms overhead. Pull down. And if the arms overhead doesn't feel good, you can just go back to goalpost. Right? For 3. Neck is nice and long. You're just looking just to the top of your mat. Last one. Lower down. Take a moment. Whew. Good. If the arms overhead feel, or reaching your arms overhead feels okay, we're going to do that one last time. So arms are overhead, and then you're going to lift your left leg and right arm at the same time, and then lower back down. Your head can be lifted, or you can have your head down to the floor, right? Like so. It's up to you. I like to sort of just hover my face off the mat, and you're just switching sides. Right arm, left leg, left arm, right leg. Good. Keeping the belly button lifted away from the floor. 2. Good. Now, if that's challenging enough, stay there. If you'd like to add on a little challenge, pull the belly button up away from the mat, lift both arms and both legs, and then go into a swimming pattern here. So it's the same pattern, you're just keeping everything hovered. Right arm, left leg, left arm, right leg. Breathe, inhale, exhale, shoulders down, neck is long. Switch, 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 switch for 5 and 4. 3, 2, 1. Lower down. Good. Bend the knees. Do a little windshield wiper side to side. Beautiful. If it feels okay, you can press yourself back into a child's pose. Hips back towards your heels. Give yourself a little stretch. Good. Big breath. Walk your hands over to the right side of your mat. Send your left hip pretty heavy to your left heel. Good. And then walk your hands over to the left side of your mat. Send your right hip, down to your right heel. And then walk your hands back to center. Big deep breath. And exhale. And come back up. Come to a comfortable seat. You can do legs crossed, legs out long, whatever feels good. And we're just gonna reach up and over to the right arm down, left arm up. And then you can thread the needle, take that left arm underneath the right, and give yourself a little twist in your spine. And then open. Good. Let's go to the other side, up and over to the left. Good. And then exhale, taking that right arm, twist, reach it underneath your left. And then inhale, open. Good. And then come back to center. Roll your shoulders back and down. And you guys are all done. If you have any questions or anything, let me know.
Thank you so much for recording
Of
that.
course, yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for all the classes and congratulations on
Thank you.
Yes. Have
Thank
a
you.
fantastic adventure leading up to the wedding. And if we don't see you before the wedding, oh my gosh, have a fantastic day. And I will want to see pictures.
Absolutely. Yes. I will. I'll come back all refreshed and zero stress in my life.
Exactly. Yeah, all the stress will be behind you.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. And thanks
Thank
for
you.
hanging in there with me and being understanding. So I will see y'all hopefully in October, but if not, definitely November.
Okay.
All
See you.
right. Thank you
Okay.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.